Hello everyone, today we have a very special video for you as we recently got the chance to have a full spoilers interview with Sarah Beaulieu, the narrative director on Assassin's Creed Mirage. Like I said, you can expect full spoilers ahead as we're going to dive into many aspects of the story and characters of Mirage and especially its ending, but as we didn't get the chance to have this as a live interview, we're going to try and sum up all the main aspects of Sarah's commentary for you all here on the channel, quoting her words at every step of the way. Huge thanks to Sarah for participating in this and for sharing such extensive answers, and to Ubisoft for making this possible. And now, let's dive into all the secrets about the story of Assassin's Creed Mirage. So our interview leaned a lot on how the game's story is featuring several dualities like Basim and Nehal, Basim and the Jinni, Basim and Roshan, etc. And our first two questions were indeed about the relationship and final clash between Basim and Roshan, which are at the center of the story in Mirage. We asked Sarah what were the motivations of both characters, whether Sarah always wanted to have this duality as a centerpiece of the ending of the game, or whether she meant to lay more seeds about this clash throughout the main story. And Sarah answered that there are indeed some seeds about this throughout the game, with Roshan actually seeing Basim being able to interact with the memory disk at the start of the game, and that already got her to worry, as through her experience among the Hidden Ones, she had gotten to know the Isu technology and to believe it is dangerous. That's why she tries and keep Basim away from the vault underneath Alamut since the beginning. And that's also why, according to Sarah, she always tries to tell him to look forward and to leave the past behind, like in the car scene, while Nehal, or his inner Loki so to speak, instead constantly tells him to seek answers for himself. That's where their conflict originates, though it's mostly a non-spoken one, until Roshan kills Kabiha to prevent Basim getting any closer to any matter concerning the Isu, and that's where Basim and Roshan finally speak openly, but it's already too late, and it's impossible for them to understand each other. By this moment, according to Sarah, Roshan knows that the answers that Basim is seeking are beneath Alamut, but for her, the Hidden Ones always come first. She's a staunch believer in the Creed, and she believes that the consequences of opening the vault could be devastating. So that's why she acts against him, even though she also knows she may lose him forever. We then asked about another duality that fascinated us, that is the one between mentor Rayhan and Roshan. We asked about how they perceive the Brotherhood, the Creed, and the use of the Isu technology, and the answer that surprised me the most is that the writers always saw Rayhan as a shady character with questionable intentions, which is something that didn't really come across, at least for me. I felt like he was using a more utilitarian approach in weaponizing Basim, so to speak, but in the interest of the Brotherhood, while Sarah instead mentioned that in the writer's mind, Rayhan likely believed he could find something interesting in the Alamut vault for himself. As for Roshan, while we did mention earlier how she perceived the Brotherhood and what she wanted to do or not do with Basim, Sarah also added that it was always the plan for her to leave the Hidden Ones at the end of the game, so she also clarified that her dedicated quest in Valhalla was written while always having this in mind. Another strong duality we asked Sarah about is the one between Basim and the Jinni and how they are intrinsically tied together. Sarah confirmed that the Jinni is the representation of the trauma born from Loki's torture in prison during the Isu era, and also added that that was the intention from the beginning. The Jinni comes from a very personal experience of Sarah's, and while researching the phenomenon of sleep paralysis, she found out that for some religious people, sleep paralysis was believed to be a Jinni coming at night to possess the sleeper, and that's what made it easy to add the Jinni to Mirage, especially as it was also something that Basim would have believed in. Sarah describes the Jinni as a physical manifestation of distress, the remnant of a memory that Basim cannot comprehend and which she tries to suppress, which in general is a concept, the scars that never quite heal or the inability to move forward after a difficult event, that Sarah and the writing team thought would resonate with many players. But when we asked about the actual Jailor in the Isu era, the actual person or people that acted as jailors and that tortured Loki in the Isu prison, well, sadly Sarah only said that she'd rather leave the identity of the Jailor open to interpretation, so no real confirmation there. In terms of timeline, we also asked Sarah when Loki's imprisonment took place during the Isu era, and Sarah didn't give a straight answer or confirmation, but stated that in the Norse mythology, Loki's imprisonment, or the binding of Loki, and his torture occur after the murder of Baldur, one of Odin's sons. Therefore, this takes place before Ragnarok. And she added that there are a lot of parallels between the Norse mythology and the Assassin's Creed 1, so I guess we can take that at least as a hint of Loki's imprisonment taking place before the Toba catastrophe. Sarah also added that fans might have noticed that there is a red light flickering during the cinematic in Loki's cell. It's a light that also appears in Basim's quote-unquote mental space, and it's particularly visible in the last in-game sequence, and it was confirmed that it's there to represent the alarm light that appeared the day Loki escaped from the prison. Speaking of the prison, in the interview we also discussed the Alamut Vault, which had already been mentioned in the AC lore since 2011 in the transmedia for Assassin's Creed Revelations as a small Isu vault where Altair found hundreds of memory disks and took 5 of them to record his own memories on, but which Mirage shows was actually an Isu prison of sorts. Sarah mentioned that what the writing team did with the vault was applying the concept of additive comprehension, which involves gathering existing elements of lore and adding meaning to them to offer a new understanding of the whole lore. In this case, the vault being an actual prison and the memory seals in it being the equivalent to the videos recording during a police interrogation, but applied to everything that happens inside the cells. Sarah mentioned that the vault was decided to be a prison and not something else like a lab, because at the time they had already decided that the Jinni was going to be a representation of a trauma that had happened in Loki's life, and Loki's torture being that specific trauma apparently came up during a discussion with Darby McDevitt. So if that was going to be the trauma, then why not use this mysterious place beneath Alamut about which players knew nothing about other than what had been mentioned in the transmedia for Revelations? And because the memory seals had also already been placed in Mirage's story, Sarah decided that the memory seals in the Alamut vault would have contained the memories/recordings of the prisoners, including that of Loki, which Basim would have found while visiting the prison. Also, speaking of the memory seals in Mirage, Sarah added that we can see different instances of them throughout the game. The memory seal that Basim finds at the Caliph's palace is one, and the one that Fazil from the House of Wisdom is very briefly shown to have is a different one, and according to Sarah, they are both from the Isu prison, but they have nothing to do with Loki. And they are not the same as the one that Nehal shows Basim in Loki's cell, which Sarah says hasn't moved from this prison since Loki escaped in the Isu era. That's why Basim can witness this memory of Loki only here, at this moment, and that's why that triggers the mental space sequence. Before we move on with the interview and some more interesting details, I wanted to take a moment to extend a heartfelt thank you to our Access the Animus insiders and initiates for their amazing support every month. You guys are incredible and we can't thank you enough for your help, which is always helping us creating more and better content. And if you haven't joined us yet and you'd like to become a member on the channel and gain access to a number of exclusive perks, including early access to special content such as this interview, but also exclusive reports or Q&A on events we have participated in or content we have tested, which we manage through a dedicated channel on our Discord server, you can do that by clicking the join button underneath this video. Another major duality in Mirage was of course that of Basim and Nehal, with Nehal being revealed at the end of the game to be the personification of Loki's memories and essence, so we asked how much did the ending rely on fans having played Valhalla first to be appreciated fully, and Sarah answered that the plan was to make the story approachable to everyone, but still with the additive comprehension approach in mind. For example, Loki's name is never pronounced in the game, and even if players haven't played Valhalla, they do understand Basim had a previous life that was embodied by Nehal. It is understandable by new players, but of course for those that played Valhalla, it has a bigger value added, and this way, according to Sarah, the ending could be appreciated by all players to different degrees. Still, Nehal is a product of Basim's mind and genetic memories in a very loosely similar fashion to how Odin's visions are a product of Eivor's mind and genetic memories, so we asked Sarah how these two ways to describe the influence of their ancestral memories stacked against each other. And Sarah answered that Eivor and Basim have different personalities, so it was important that their struggles with their past memories was also portrayed differently. But most importantly, Sarah clarified that differently from what happens for Eivor, the farewell scene with Nehal at the end of Mirage is actually Basim letting Loki take the reins while he is withdrawing in the background. In Sarah's words, at the end of Mirage, Basim is a memory, while instead Eivor always remains Eivor till the end. And that's why in the very final scene of Mirage that Sarah says is actually the first one that she wrote, and Kidu no longer recognizes Basim. It's the tipping point, the moment we know that Basim will never be Basim again. We then touched upon Basim's approach towards the Creed and the Brotherhood throughout his life. Sarah mentioned that at the start of Mirage, Basim sees the Hidden Ones as heroes, as a way to pursue justice, but also to prove himself and evolve. After joining the Hidden Ones and after his first assassination, he sees the Jinni outside of his nightmares for the first time, and from then, the Jinni keeps appearing after the assassination of each main target for a reason. That is, moments of intense violence trigger the trauma of the torture that Loki himself endured. That's why the Jinni appears in very specific moments in the story, and it's something that eats away at Basim, but as we saw, Roshan ignores his questions, advising him to leave his past behind. So, when Basim discovers that she hid from him what was beneath Alamut, he feels betrayed, and according to Sarah, he is angry, torn between his duty as a Hidden One and his need to uncover what lies beneath Alamut. Sarah further explained that when Basim arrives at Alamut and witnesses the massacre of the Hidden Ones, it's an intense feeling of failure that brings him to question the Creed, and above all, he is feeling the influence of Nehal, who stands beside him at the Isu prison gate. We even asked what is Basim's approach to the Creed after he exits the Alamut vault and talks to Rayhan, but as she mentioned, by that time it's a conversation between Loki and Rayhan, as Basim has taken the backseat. And of course at that point Loki has other motivations to find Odin and seek revenge. Before we wrap up, for the last bit of the video we wanted to share a round of quick-fire tidbits from different topics that came out of the interview, more often than not oriented towards content that was cut from the game. Alright, let's start. Roshan's son. In the conception stage of the game, in one of the early versions of the story, Basim was supposed to go find Roshan's son called Adnan, who was going to play a major role in the revelation of Loki's presence at the end of the game. A memory seal for each target. In an early draft of the story, Sarah wanted each member of the Order of the Ancients to keep a memory seal. Basim would get each seal back after killing them, and similarly to Revelations, he would use them to directly enter a memory, allowing the player to embody someone new. Carlo Rota and Majdoub. When asked if Carlo Rota, the voice actor for Basim in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, was ever considered to be included in Mirage, Sarah mentioned that his voice is very deep, very mature, and didn't suit the younger Basim of Mirage. Plus, the team really wanted to focus on pronunciation and accents to increase immersivity and authenticity, so Majdoub was the actual choice for the voice actor, and according to Sarah, him speaking Arabic fluently really added to the character. The Book of Dreams. You might have heard about this already, but one of the hints that Nehal is who she is the book that she retrieves from the House of Wisdom during the Abbasia narrative arc, where she claims to have saved it from the fire. That book is the Great Book of Interpretation of Dreams, written during the 7th century by Muhammad ibn Sirin. After this scene, when the player returns to Anbar, they can find the book in Basim's hideout, meaning obviously that Basim has retrieved it himself at some point. Interestingly enough, the Great Book of Interpretation of Dreams was focused on a quite poignant subject for Basim. the Order of the Ancients and the Digsites. Sarah commented that the Order of the Ancients started several Digsites in Mirage because they were searching for other Isu sites and other memory seals, and that's because, according to her, they were already aware of the presence of the Isu prison beneath Alamut and that they would find hundreds of memory seals in there. Sarah also added that the Order also knew about the Sages, so they were not necessarily looking for Basim in particular, at least until they knew about him, but a reincarnation of an Isu, very much like the Memory Seals, would have been an invaluable source of knowledge on the first civilization and a powerful tool for them. And that was it for our synopsis of our interview with narrative director Sarah Beaulieu. If you're interested in the full transcript of the interview, you can find it on our website at the link you can find in the description, but before we go, we wanted to highlight a final comment by Sarah at the end of the interview that we believe does put things in perspective. Beyond the questions about design, lore, and everything, I think it's important that players can understand the realities of game development. There are human beings behind every game. Among developers, we often say that releasing a game is always a miracle, because it's incredibly challenging. With Mirage, we wanted to craft a game both for the fans and for ourselves, and I hope you enjoyed playing as Basim. So once again, we'd like to thank Sarah for her time and her in-depth answers to our questions, and the folks at Ubisoft for the support for this interview, and as usual, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in our next video.